It was in the early morning, and Rainbow Dash was getting ready to work at the school with her friends. She was really excited since it was after summer break happened, and she was happy planning for new practice for the gym class and some other and her own classes. But there's something about that would change her life that day. On her way to the school, she noticed a pig's eye from on the ground near the market. She had never seen this particular Pegasi before, but she didn't stop but just continue to go to the school. And during the first few classes though, she had no problem teaching at the students about being loyal friend and some other about gym classes, but there was something about back in her mind. She was thinking about this particular Pegasi. It was a stallion, and in her mind he was quite handsome. But there was something about him was she had never seen him before, especially in Ponyville, so she didn't pay much attention. But during lunch break, when she was having some lunch with her friends at in Twilight's office, she heard that a Pinky was talking about this particular stallion that recently moved to Ponyville. And Pinky, the Rainbow asked, which stallion are you talking about? Then Pinky explained that this particular stallion, a Pegasi, who had the same coat colors as Rainbow, but with green and white striped mane. Pinky, I think I did see him before on my way here, said Rainbow. So they even asked Pinky what his name was, and she said that his name was Minty Frost, and he was in fact from Baltimore. He had just recently moved to Ponyville about a few days ago. And when Pinky found out, she wanted to pay for this big welcome party, but he declined, which normally every pony town really accepted. And she asked him why. He said that he didn't want to have any sort of big party to celebrate because he's new in town. But he thanked her for the opportunity for the offer and just went on his own day. The rest of the day, Rainbow then she couldn't even think of much about except for Minty Frost. There was something about him. She couldn't put her finger on it. And later the same day, after school was finished, she went to the market to buy some food and went before going back home. She ran in to some pony, and in fact, it was in fact Minty Frost. She apologized for that she walked into him, and he said that no harm done. And before that she could say anything, Rainbow Dash. So I finally meeting you. She was very surprised when he said that. And it turned out that he was in fact one of her big fans as a Wonderbolt. And he had been watching some of her shows when they were in Baltimore, even Manhattan, and he was just a big fan of hers. And she will really appreciate that she has a fan who lives in Ponyville, except for Scootaloo and among others. But since Minty Frost was in fact the only ones from his family who lived in this particular part of the state of the kingdom, Minty Frost asked if Rainbow would probably give him some teaching how to be a fast flyer, or at least being able to fly in some loops and curves. And of course, he said that he was willing to pay for her some other classes, but Rainbow declined that particular offer. But she was willing to teach him. She was. But not that particular day, but she said that she could do that the next day, which he agreed. But on the next day, at the meadow after school was over, Minty Frost was waiting to do this practice with Rainbow. And when Rainbow appeared, his heart was beating a little bit faster because, in his mind, Rainbow was the most beautiful mare he has ever seen. He had actually been in secret in love with her for the past year, but has never said that to her at all because, or even mentioned this to any point because he didn't want to be freak her out because even at her as her biggest one of her biggest fans, at the same time, not only that he has a crush on her. For the most part, the training went perfectly fine, except that he flew into some bushes and some, a tree from now and then. But after almost an entire afternoon of practice, seems that he getting hang of it. And then, when they were finished, he tried to make this smoothly and asked if she wanted to go out with him on a date, which Rainbow was a bit surprised, but she declined the offer, which he felt a bit hurt, but he accepted it. But then Rainbow asked him about something about himself, like why he moved to Ponville in the first place and how it was like he's like back in Baltimore, something like that. And he was really happy to answer as much of his questions as he could. He always answered them honestly, but it was something about his life back in Baltimore that he said that he missed so much. One of the reasons that he moved was that he had been left off his work. He wanted to be living in more quiet community. He was getting tired living in a big city, which which Rainbow could explain as well because she once lived in Cloudstone, who is also a big city. So after that, they walked back to Ponyville, and they were getting well along together. And after about a few days of being talking at the either at the park or near the school, just small talk mostly, Rainbow then asked if the offer for him to be asking her out still standing, which she said yes. And then he said yes. But he was a little bit surprised, and it is even most shocked. And he was a little bit confused what she said yes to. Then she explained. She wanted to go out with him. And he asked her why is that she has changed her mind so suddenly. Rainbow said that she thought maybe that he's a kind of awesome stallion to be hang around with. They had so much in common, and she wanted to see how much if they had any some sort of connection as possible. So he agreed. So they went decided to go to have a picnic at the park the next day. But sadly, when Rainbow wakes up the next day, it was a rainy day. She had forgot the local weather team had planned for a big rain the whole day. So they had to cancel their picnic, which Rainbow was really heartbroken. But especially though when Minty Frost mentioned that he wasn't even upset or sad about this because he said they can just postpone their picnic a little bit later on another day, which made Rainbow a little bit happier. So instead of for their picnic, they actually spent some time in Minty Frost's home to reading some Daring Do. And it turned out for be for there that Minty Frost was a big fan of Daring Do. Even though that he didn't have some of the most recent copies of the new book that hasn't come out yet, but he preferred reading one of the first ones that he came out, and he preferred those because they were more classical ones. And Rainbow agreed. Ever since they became closer friends, they spent a lot of time reading together that same day. But about a week later, on a Friday after school was over, they decided to have the picnic. So they went to the park with a basket, some sandwiches and cupcakes and something like that. And they had just a great time. Even though the Pinky had made some special cupcakes for Rainbow, with some pink cupcakes with some hearts on it, which Rainbow just rolled her eyes and said, Pinky, is this necessary, Pinky? This is on just the first date. But Pinky, she didn't want to listen for that. She would just want to make sure that Rainbow had a good time with Minty Frost, and especially hoping this could trigger some sort of romance between them. Even though Rainbow herself probably didn't want to have any sort of romance, because in fact she had a crush on Soren for some while. After that, she found out that he has been dating Spitfire for some time. But after her dear date at the picnic, things between Minty Frost and Rainbow started to slowly get even more serious between them. In fact, after they have been after the first date, Minty Frost asked Rainbow if she wanted to go on a date again, and she could choose go to the movies or to have some dinner. Even though there weren't much any good movies lately at the cinema. So Rainbow decided to make a dinner. So they went to a restaurant that just opened in town. And in a course, as to his gentle cold that Minty Frost was, he let decide to make Rainbow to order the food and even the dessert. Even after all this dating, Rainbow's friends were a little bit curious to know more about him and even ask how things are going between them, like what she thinks about him, like that, some other things. And really surprisingly, when they found out that she actually likes them even more for each single time they meet. When Rarity just close slowly asking if Rainbow were in love with Minty Frost. At first, Rainbow didn't even want to answer, but she did, and they all surprised, even Pinky almost. But Rainbow said that she was in love with him, and that she was happy to be Minty Frost's girlfriend. And for that, Pinky threw a big party to celebrate that Rainbow finally had a boyfriend. Even though Rainbow just rolled her eyes again, which she normally do, but she enjoyed that to saying that Minty Frost was her boyfriend. Even that she kept this relationship a secret from her parents, because as she knows how they will react. But after some time, Minty Frost had asked Rainbow if she wanted to go see his parents for a visit in Baltimore, and she was a little bit scared how they would take it, or how at least how they would react. But it turned out Minty Frost had been telling his parents about them over letters, and they were really excited to get to know her, or at least meet her in the first time, and especially when they knows who she is, because they knew about her. She's a wonderbolt and one of the biggest heroes in modern history of Equestria, and that she is one of the biggest heroes. So she was still nervous, even on the train to Baltimore. She was so nervous that she didn't want to jump out the window and fly back home. But Minty Frost managed to convince her to at least give it a try. Even if they might sound a little bit excited to see her in the first place, but when they got there, the first meeting went really surprisingly quite well. They weren't that super excited like her parents are. Though they did ask her some questions like how things like how things is for her to be a wonderbolt. Somehow some of the questions how like what she liked to do when she was growing up, and if she had any siblings, or how her family was like back home. So some of those are harmless questions. And even that Minty Frost's mom was much really enjoyed even Rainbow Dash. Except for one comment when she said when they were having tea, like when she asked, "So when is there going to be the wedding and have a grandkids? Have you anything like that planned for?" Both Minty Frost and Rainbow just stared at his mother, and they both almost showing on the TV. And he said, "Mom, we haven't even been dating that long yet. And even if we were, we probably have been waiting for a little bit longer to thinking more about some things like that. You know that." But his mother just smiled and laughed of it. She was just wanting to be just kidding with them, something like that. But they knew something about could have perhaps happened. And after the first meeting with his family, Rainbow asked if he was ready to meet her family. And of course, they were really super excited and they were even shocked because that knowing that their daughter had a boyfriend all along without they have even been informed. She said why? Because since they can be a little bit excited and that she didn't want to freak him out or maybe that they would scare him so that they will probably see him anymore. So, but they totally understood that. But his meeting with Rainbow's parents went quite well as well. They asked him almost the same questions, like if he had siblings or what is his, how it's like back in Baltimore was like, and what his parents are doing for a living, and sort of questions. But then there was one question which Rainbow didn't expect. What how he feels to be with Rainbow as in a relationship. How much he care about her, for most of course. And he answered truly that he truly loved her more than anything. Despite if she was a local hero and a big famous celebrity, as beyond Wonderbolt, those things didn't matter to him. As long as that he's with her, he loves her. Even if she was just even if she was like just a sort of a buckball player or anything sim or maybe as a gardener, he would still love her, no matter what. And that made her a little bit crying a little bit, even as she said that she doesn't like it. Things between Minty Frost and Rainbow seems to be going well. But there was one time though, because during the first winter they've been together, things started getting worse. Around the winter, Ponyville was suffering from the pony flu. At first, there was only a few cases. I know some ponies ended up in hospital. Some were just had a mild form of it. But then, as the winter was getting even worse, Rainbow got sick from it. And in her case, it was getting even worse and worse. And it turned out that Ponyville's supplies of this particular vaccine was getting low. And they only two bottles left, and they still had around 2 dozens of pea ponies in the hospital needed for treatment. And since Baltimore itself was the closest town to the have, but Baltimore had transported some of the medicines to Camelot, and they were expecting to have a package, or at least some 2 packages of this medicine from Camelot. But at the same time when Rainbow was at the hospital, this was this big snowstorm going on. And the doctor said maybe that she probably won't even to make it. Because her conditions was just getting worse and worse for each single day. And for Minty Frost, he was terrified. Knowing that his girlfriend might losing her life if she doesn't get the medicine in time. Despite getting orders from many others not getting outside during the storm. Because it could only not only harm being risk his own life, but he did. Because after he know that Rainbow might not even survive this pony flu, he didn't want to lose her. So he did anything that he wanted to do to save her, even against the doctor's recommendation not to be flying in this storm, because this was one of the worst storms in a few years in Poland. But despite that, so during the evening, when he was still left at the hospital, He told Rainbow, who was unconscious by the time, that he loves her and he will go get the medicine for her and the others. So, during that, after he left the hospital, he quickly took off right away through the storm, and he had this horrible time. So he was getting closer because the wind they were so strong, almost flying him out of course. He almost fell to the ground several times, but he always get up and try to fly. He tried to fly against the wind. It was like it was almost like he was flying against a huge fan. But after almost 3 hours of being pushing himself to the limit, he finally reached Camelot. After 3 hours of intense flying in this storm winds, suddenly when he came arrived at the hospital in Camelot, some of the doctors there asked was he where he's from and if he needs any help. But he said that he's from Ponyville and that he was there to help to bring some of the medicine to Ponyville, some of the pony flu vaccine. And the doctors there said that they are going to send a package, or at least 2 packages to Ponyville by the next day when the storm had been passed. But the doctors back in Ponyville had maybe said that Rainbow may not survive the night. And knowing that, he couldn't even risk it. So he asked if he could have at least one bottle with him so that he can go back to Ponyville. And the doctors terrified, saying that they even asked him if he had flied all the way from Ponyville to Canterlot in this particular weather. And he said yes. And the doctor said that is suicide. It's crazy. No pony should never go out in this particular weather, despite knowing how dangerous it can be. But he refused. But the doctor gave him a bottle, knowing that perhaps he said, at least wait till the storm has passed in the morning. Then you can take the train, but saving to give this medicine to your one loved one. But Minty Frost didn't even listen. After he got the medicine, he put it in his saddlebag and took off from the hospital. Even the doctors ran after him, telling him to wait, but he didn't listen. He had still 3 hours back in this intense wind back, but this time it was like that, almost like the wind was pushing him back even more harder. He was almost about to give up when he remembers, knowing he could almost see Rainbow's face in front of him in the hospital bed, knowing she would not survive. And from that knowing made him get so much more energy. He moved clearly his mind, and he pushed himself so close that it almost pushed him to the limit. And after nearly 2 hours later, he arrived to Ponyville and the hospital. When he arrived in the waiting area, a nurse saw that he was just arrived. But they saw that he left at least a few hours earlier. Why he was back? Before he could say anything, she could ask him that. He opened and put a bottle of yellow liquid on the table on the front desk and said, Pony flu cure, Rainbow Dash, and then he collapsed. He had pushed his body to the very limit, in flying from an intense of storm winds to Canterlot and back. That had pushed his body to the very limit, and after that he had finally arrived, he collapsed of exhaustion. It took him almost 2 days to wake up. Around the same time when he woke up, a doctor informed him Rainbow was going to make a full recovery, and hearing that made him just happy. And when Rainbow was good enough, at least had recovered enough, she met him and she kissed him all over repeatedly, crying, knowing how she said, "You crazy stallion! You could have died. But he said that I would do anything to save you from dying. I would give my own life to save you. That made her cry even more, knowing how much he really cares about her, because no pony has ever done this before to her. And when her friends was told about this by Rainbow, they were shocked. Even his parents was completely unaware about what happened. After that, Rainbow had made a letter to his parents informing them what happened. They even came to Ponyville to see their son, just to make sure that he was safe. But knowing that not only that he was okay, but he saved Rainbow's life by almost give a try, even willing to give up his own life to save hers. That made his father proud, a little bit angry at his son, but at the same mostly of all, proud. And a few months later, during the spring, Minty Frost proposed to Rainbow, which she said yes. She could not have been happier to be with the one that most of all that she loved, and especially what he did during the winter for her. This made her love for him beyond anything stronger. They even had the wedding at the Sweet Apple Acres. Even though after this, all of this happened, their love for each other grew beyond anything. Even they went to a tropical island for their honeymoon for about a week. They just had some amazing time there, and even especially during the wedding, at the party, both families could see how happy Rainbow and Minty Frost were together. They were so happy. It was like when they were dancing the first time, it was like they were only ones there. It's like the whole world was just stopped. Knowing how much Minty Frost cared about her. She had never experienced such true loyalty, such true love for anybody. After they had been married for about 4 years, they announced to both families and friends that they were expecting a baby. And every pony was super excited. Both families were so overjoyed they're going to have their first grandkid. And when a few months later, they had a baby girl. And also, 4 years later, they were expecting another baby, a son. Even having a family with the pony that she loved the most, Rainbow. If she had never seen, if she didn't see Minty Frost at the market those years ago, she probably had missed out to finding true love and even probably not being alive to this day. Knowing how much he was willing to sacrifice so much to save her, even the meaning of sacrificing his whole life to save Rainbow. That was made them both more happier than anything in the whole world. Because their love for each other grew beyond anything. Even for Rainbow, her love for Minty Frost, it was more stronger for each single day that she can never ask for better husband than Minty Frost. Even Minty Frost himself could not ask for better wife than for a Rainbow. And their love for each other and for the family only grew stronger for each single day. And that's how Minty Frost and Rainbow Dash on the True Love got a big family. The end.